So, you've clicked on this video for one of four reasons. 1. You're like me and have gone through ancient and obscure versions of the game to collect unobtainable items and want a better experience farm for the elusive Fortune and Silk Touch pickaxe. 2. You still have a world from an old version of the game and refuse to update it, in which case, mad respect to you. 3. You are simply curious about how a dragon experience farm is even possible in the first place. Or 4. YouTube autoplay somehow brought you here. In any case, this video will cover both the mechanics of the farm and most variations on how the farm can be built depending on the versions your world has gone through and the items you have. So, to go over the basics of the farm, I will use only the finest Google Slides presentation. So firstly, we need to go over the mechanics of the farm. So, inside the dragon code, the death animation works based on an internal integer called death ticks. And experience is dropped based on the value of this counter. And an important note for the next point is that the Ender Dragon class extends the Entity Living class. Now, when an entity is loaded from the disk, read entity from NBT is called. But the read entity from NBT method is not overwritten within Entity Dragon, and therefore uses the Entity Living method. Now the reason this is important is because since that is not overwritten, the death ticks counter is always initialized to 0 when the Ender Dragon is loaded from disk. Ergo, once experience is dropped, you can simply unload the dragon before the animation has finished, and it will simply drop more. So constraints of the farm is that the dragon can't be loaded for more than 200 ticks or else it breaks. And simply, as previously stated, if we just unload it before the counter reaches 200 ticks, all of the code will never be used to set it to be dead, and we can loop through it again and again. So let's get a basic chunk overview on how this will look. So currently the dragon is saved to disk and is not loaded in memory whatsoever. So let's get a player in here. Now, the green squares are entity processing, red, lazy loading, but right now the dragon is still completely unloaded. But now once the dragon enters lazy loading chunks, it will be initialized with the death tick counter set to 0, but it won't tick until it reaches entity processing chunks. And then the counter will, of course, increase and the animation will run. And when it hits 155 ticks in the animation, it will drop the first batch of experience, in this case, 1,000 experience. And every 5 ticks, it will spawn in another batch, until it reaches 200 ticks, where a final batch of either 10,000 for pre-1.3 versions or 2,000 for post-1.3 versions will be spawned in, and the dragon will be removed, and the end portal will be created. Now we don't want this because we can't recycle the dragon, so let's rewind a little bit to 195 ticks. If we simply move the player away before it reaches 200 ticks, when it hits lazy loading chunks, the tick counter will no longer count up until we move the player all the way away and the dragon is then saved to disk, where the death tick counter is then reset to 0. Congratulations, it's a farm. And from this, we can see that 9,000 experience is delivered per cycle, which is 0 to level 60. And with my design having a cycle time of about 19 seconds, it produces a massive 1.7 million experience points an hour. So now let's see what that looks like in-game. So first, let's go through the resources you will need to collect before building this farm. So firstly, this is approximately the gear you will need. You'll need some basic iron unenchanted armor. You'll need a preferably power bow, some arrows, some pork chops, and some snowballs. You'll need 18 stacks of a generic building block and 3 stacks of logs. And you will need either 9 stacks of endstone or 9 stacks of obsidian, or a mismatch of the two, it doesn't matter. You will need all of this stuff for the other various bits and bobs, and for optional resources, we will need an enchanting table and some anvils, and you'll need either 30 bookshelves if you're in pre-1.3 or 15 for after. You will need an ender chest and some nether portal items. You can also use some stacked boats instead of the oak logs, and you will need resources to either save state or chunk regen the 0 chunk in the case of you've already killed the dragon or wish to use the exit end fountain. Alright, to begin building the farm, I've hopped into an older version because boats were being really buggy in 1.7.10. So, when we first enter the end, of course, the Ender Dragon will be here, and this will be a nuisance because the dragon will try to fly at us and attack us, and in the process will destroy a lot of the things that we are building. So, to alleviate this pain, we can simply move the dragon into unloaded chunks. So the way that we do this is we simply construct a line that is very long to reach into unloaded chunks, and we place boats along it so that we can simply right-click to travel quite quickly. So we will just need to wait for the dragon to attack us. Alright, and then I'll just use an auto-clicker here, and you can see that we move very fast. And when we reach the end of the line here, we can either place a portal item and go through it, or we can jump into the void. Alright, and now when we re-enter the end, the dragon is completely unloaded and will no longer be a nuisance. Now, of course, if you have already killed the dragon in your world, you do not need to complete this step. So step 2 is that with the dragon unloaded, we simply need to build the farm. Now, all of this stuff here obviously doesn't need to be built, and I've made some nicer paths for the world download, but everything up until this platform way out here does not need to be made of endstone. I simply used endstone because creative mode. But this platform way at the end needs to be either obsidian or endstone because those are blocks that the dragon cannot destroy. Of course, if you really want to be fancy, you can use bedrock, but I would not recommend it. And we will just need to build all of this as in the world download. Now, the one thing that can change between the world download and your world is the Y level. The Y level does not need to be exact. And if we fly back over to the obsidian platform, you will see that there are actually 2 obsidian platforms present. There's one that is at a higher Y level of 51, and another one that's at 48. Now the reason that this is this way is because in pre-1.3 single player, the obsidian platform would generate at Y51, instead of Y48, as in modern versions and on the server side. It really doesn't matter which Y level you conform to, but this build was simply made for Y51. But everything else can just be built exactly as in this world download. So once we have finished building the farm, it is now time to release the beast. So, if you have already killed the Ender Dragon, you will need to perform chunk regeneration upon your 0 chunk, and that will regenerate a new Ender Dragon. And after you've done that, you will need to come over here to the timer, and we will need to hotwire it to be on, because the dragon will likely fly through here and destroy this torch tower partially. So with that done, if you've unloaded the dragon, you can go and reload it, or you can wait for the newly spawned dragon to target you. So, we have loaded this dragon back in, and it has retargeted us. You can see it's going to knock out part of that torch tower. And now it's here at the tower, and it's kind of knocking me around. And now we need to kill it as close to center as it can be, and we either need to jump off the platform or use a nether portal to then leave this platform quickly. Now, before we re-enter the end and begin using the farm, we will need to make sure that we are either in 1.3 and above, or we are running the world on a locally hosted server with a view distance of 10. So with that out of the way, load creative, we can now re-enter the end. And we will need to fix our torch tower that the dragon broke when it flew over to the kill platform, and undo our little timer hot wire here. And then this farm will be ready to use. So you can simply follow the steps posted here. We are hosting on a dedicated server with a view distance of 10. We'll need to relog, hold the top lever and make sure the clock is running, then get in the minecart, and start the farm. And there we go, the first batch of experience has arrived. And of course we don't want to look at any of the Endermen that have spawned. And now we can simply sit completely AFK for hours. Now, one slight issue that can very rarely happen with this farm is if the server gets a very big lag spike, the farm can break. So each time before you run it, just to be safe, make a backup. Personally, I have run this farm for over 24 hours straight without it breaking, but always just make that backup and stay safe. But with that out of the way, this farm is complete. So when you're done using the farm and are ready to turn it off, all you need to do is wait for the farm to cycle back to the starting platform, and then you just quickly flip this bottom lever, and then you can turn off the timer, and now you've turned off the farm. So now you have 3 different options to leave the end depending on what items you have available. One is going into the void. To keep your items, you will have to use an ender chest, which is introduced in 1.3, so you may have to just store your items in a normal chest until 1.3 comes around. 2, you can use the nether portal item from beta 1.6 test build 3, and it will place you into the nether, and depending on which version, it will either place you pseudo-randomly in the nether, which is usually into a wall, or it will correctly generate a nether portal for you to exit. Or 3, if you've already killed the dragon and regenerated it, you can simply use your old end fountain. I hope you enjoyed this more technical video on my design for a dragon farm. Make sure to check out Panda4994's original video on the concept, as he covers a lot of the same things that I do, and I might have been dumb and missed something important that he likely covered. Also make sure to check out the Minecraft Discontinued Features community, as they have a lot of information on things such as obtaining the nether portal item and chunk regeneration. You can also find me on the Discord if you have issues with the farm and wish to contact me. So, with this all wrapped up, I'll see you next time.